introduce Gary today, and you all know, because we did a little write-up on him for the invitation to be here, so you pretty much know his background. Gary, did you grow up here?
Yes.
So you were born here?
I was born at Sandia Base in 1952, and I grew up in Hoffmantown.
Ah, okay. So he's been around a long time. He was a contractor.
Not that long.
He was a contractor for 20 years, and you specialized in home building, right?
Yes.
Yes, home building. And he has lived, I guess, most of your adult life now in the Nob Hill area.
The best part of it, yes.
Yeah. And he and his wife Melodie have restored a number of homes in the Nob Hill area, and well, actually within Nob Hill. But I'm looking forward to the story. I don't know that I have much more to say about you. I might as well just turn it over to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Dick. Yeah, my dad came out from Indiana in 1949 with the Air Force, and because of that, I have the good luck to call myself a native of Albuquerque. And growing up around Hoffmantown, we didn't leave the area much, but when I came down to UNM for college, that's when I discovered Nob Hill. And I've been passionate about Nob Hill and its story ever since. I saw there a sense of place and a sense of historic character that I didn't have in my community growing up. You might say they have a little bit now, but we certainly didn't have much then. And so that sense of place really turned me on. And I've been a Nob Hilleño then since 1992, and I have some Nob Hilleño friends here, Dennis and Jean and Beth, who are good friends from Nob Hill, Nob Hilleño Spencer Nelson. So I'm going to propose that we make this a bit of a dialogue if you want to, and rather than questions at the end, although that's fine. But I would say everyone in this room knows things about Nob Hill that I don't know, and that most of us don't know. So as we go along, time out.
Do you have a microphone?
Kathy didn't give me one.
Okay. Well, I'll go get Kathy.
Here, I'll take care of it.
I won't say anything important until you return. If you want to chime in with something, Roland says you're a group of chimers, so you just let me know and chime in. It may be that it's coming up later in the talk. If so, I'll say we're going to get that, but otherwise we'll get it right then. I dedicate my remarks today to this good friend, who many of you knew, David J. Cameron, a wonderful friend of Nob Hill, a wonderful friend of preservation. I think his real strength was that he identified the tie between culture and architecture. And he was one of the first to do that. He was one of those responsible for the preservation of resources that heretofore had not been understood or known to be worthy of preservation. And this is what he did. And he taught many of us in Nob Hill about our community. Jean is his wife. She's here today with Dennis and Beth. Thanks, Jean.
That's a great thing. I said that was a great picture. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
David's scholarly work regarding the city's history, major contributions by the way of history complex for the city.
Thank you. Thank you. Jean, was he going off on one of his road trips?
Well, we were making pictures of each other, yes, for the Humanities Council, so that was the reason we were taking pictures. But yes, he loved that hat. You see, that was, he collected that as he was going on a
Many of you are familiar with this image of Albuquerque around 1935. The Soil Conservation Service made the image from an aerial mosaic. The thing that it shows that it's so meaningful to me is that outside of the Rio Grande Valley, the Incised Valley in 1935, very little of Albuquerque was developed. And about all you see is maybe a few farmsteads or ranchsteads out here. Lots of trails that would go up. A lot of them go out to Harris Canyon, it looks like. And then here is, I'd say, Roosevelt Park and Monte Vista Campus Boulevard. And that's about as far as it went in 1935. I guess what drove the development out that way originally was the founding of UNM. And here's a neat shot of Hodgin Hall, which was completed in 1892. I think that the territorial legislature directed in the legislation that this should be placed on a high area that would be safe from flooding. And it looks like they did accomplish that. Here's some of the men out playing football. I understand that this was probably at Manal High School, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what the East Mesa looked like early in the century. In Nob Hill, we admired D.K.B. Sellers because he was instrumental in the platting of the first part of what we now call Nob Hill, which was University Heights, the 1916 section. And here's a shot of Sellers when he was about 25. He was born in 1861 in Dayton, Ohio, and about 4 years later, there's confusion about what Horace Greeley said or wrote, but it's generally agreed that he wrote an editorial in a newspaper and he encouraged Civil War veterans to go west and settle the country. He said, "Washington is not a place to live in. The rents are high, the food is bad, the dust is disgusting, and the morals are deplorable. Go west, young man, go west, and grow up with the country." Sellers went out through Colorado. He went as far as Northern California. He got into the tobacco and fruit business. He went bust in a panic. He went up to the Klondike to try and regain his fortune. Back down through Farmington, New Mexico, and then 1903 made it to Albuquerque. He was a very public man. He had his fingers in everything, and even as soon as his arrival here, he was known as a colonel. Do you know which branch of the military he was in?
Wasn't it many?
None. Yeah. Out in California. Huh?
I served in that one.
Okay, Colonel. Colonel Pentilla. He got that title out in California and he liked it so much he just kept it. He got onto the Territorial Fair Association. Territorial Fair Association. He was the secretary. And he volunteered to go to the Navajo Reservation and get together a group of singers and dancers and bring them to the state fair. And they brought them in 1908, and this says the group of photographs shows the first successful attempt to reproduce Indian dances on the moving picture film. In 1906, he and a group of investors platted when I was at UNM, it was called the student ghetto. I don't think it's called that anymore, but maybe it is.
Yes, it is.
It is, Bill?
I'll call it that.
He platted that in 1906, along with partners H.B. Ferguson and M.W. Flournoy. And so that's the area immediately south of University of New Mexico. The streets like Harvard and Princeton and Vassar and Stanford and Cornell and Columbia. And they made this brochure that Beth helped me find at the Center for Southwest Research. It's a neat little brochure, about like this yellow brochure, but a little smaller. And they referred to that University Heights as the coming aristocratic section of Albuquerque. This is what it looked like out there. We don't know what that one building is. And this is the plat. The plat, of course, established the streets, the property lines, the utility easements, so that it could be developed. And this is the part that they platted in 1906. This is Girard. And so this is the 1906 portion below the university. And the first street below Central is Silver, and then the next one was Coal, and then the next one was Highland. And those got renamed somewhere along the line. The Coal was changed to Lead, and Highland was changed to Coal. And that's what they are today. The lots ranged from $25 to $250. The $25 lots were way down south near Garfield, interior lots, and the good lots like 275 were up by the Frontier Restaurant, you know, right on Central. They charged $5 down per lot for 2 or more lots, $10 down for 1 lot. So there's the plat again. And in 1916, the partners developed the eastern part of University Heights. And that's the first part of what we today call Nob Hill. This is one of the early houses built on Girard. It's a nice example of Southwest vernacular style house, still very well preserved. Here's another one in a streamlined modern style. Southwest Spanish Pueblo revival a little later. Over the next 20 years, there were 6 residential subdivisions that were platted in Nob Hill. The second one was Granada Heights. And then William Leverett Sr. Platted the Monte Vista, College View. Those were both in 1926. And then Mesa Grande followed in 31. Then Broadmoor was platted right after the war. You can see an interesting evolution in the way that subdivisions were designed between 1916 and 1945. The main difference being the early ones were strictly grids, north, south, and east-west grids, particularly University Heights, Granada Heights, College View. In Monte Vista, you see a combination. Around the perimeter, Monte Vista is grid, but it had a large arroyo, campus wash going, cutting through diagonally. And so the designers used that. They kept that as a drainage, and they allowed the streets to come in at a 90-degree angle to it. Then Broadmoor in 1945, by that time things had changed a lot. Financing had changed, and the idea of a garage had changed a lot. Namely, the garages were generally brought up and attached to the front of the house after the war, whereas before that, they were still a little like a vestigial carriage house back in the corner of the lot. That's what all of you have. Well, most of you have on your house. Gene, yours is up front. So the other thing that happened in Broadmoor, they went wider and shallower as opposed to the old lots that were narrow and deep. And then they brought the garages up to the front of the house. And then they got away from the grid. They went more with a kind of parallel, sinuous lines, but they didn't go all the way through. in the case of Broadmoor, they all die down at Ridgely.
Ridgely and Marquette.
They all die at Ridgely. And so you don't get all that cut-through traffic. Most of us in Nob Hill deal with a lot of cut-through traffic. But a friend of mine over in Broadmoor says, no, we don't get cut-through traffic because it doesn't go through. It's not a cul-de-sac, but it doesn't go through. If you can make out this little bit of a hatched area, Monte Vista and College View were inventoried, nominated and listed 1999 to the state register, 2001 to the national register. And several of you in this room had a lot to do with that. A lot of that work was done by, what are the grants, Mary Ellen?
Certified local government.
Certified local government grants. They start with the Park Service, right, and they flow through the Historic Preservation Division to certified local governments. David was deeply involved in the production of the nomination for this district. There's Monte Vista. I talked to you about how around the edges it's in the old grid fashion, and then in the middle, here's the old campus wash that runs by Monte Vista Elementary.
Is there a big, like, drain pipe underneath that?
Yes, that was originally a surface drainage, and you probably remember, Spencer, about 15 years ago, they blocked those streets off and they put some very large culverts in there. Were you involved in that, Roland? Maybe like a pair of 6-foot culverts or something that go right down underneath campus. It used to run a lot, like almost every rainfall it would run some, and then on many rainfalls it would run up to the curb or even beyond.
Many of the houses, the lots, they've been built up just for that purpose.
Yes, and it was naturally graded like that because it's the only drainage I've heard of in New Mexico called a wash and not an arroyo. I have no concept how I got that name.
Some Eastern named it that.
A wash, yeah. There is a
kids
man.
can't tube down when it rains.
Have you seen people tubing
people
down?
have talked about doing that.
Canyon Highland had one too, on copper right up here. But it wasn't that big, and it was called a dry arroyo, and it had little wooden bridges across it.
It's in the center.
It was just a drainage ditch. It wasn't even a street, was it?
No, it wasn't a street.
Originally.
For years.
Yeah, there is a man in Nob Hill, Bill Nolan, who came out as a teen, and around 1960, he says, his dad called him out, and they went out to Campus Wash, and it was running a couple feet deep, and a guy floated by in a canoe. And Bill said, "Where are you going?" And the guy said, "I'm going to work." This is a house that was built in Monte Vista in 1930. The Fleming family did the house for themselves. Beulah Fleming designed it, and she's considered one of the first female architects in Albuquerque. You can see what's around it. There's one house over there on Amherst, I think, and that's just it in 1930. William Leverett Sr. built this home on Dartmouth. That's still there in beautiful shape with good stewards. This is a house on North Aliso. This is more typical of what was built in Nob Hill. Those first two were kind of big and kind of nice and fancy. More of what's in most of Nob Hill is simpler houses, and that's a great part of the historic fabric of Nob Hill is the simple houses. I'm not clear on how the land was given or sold. I've heard that Leverett gave the land to APS, I don't know, but they built Monte Vista School in 1931. They completed it. The students at Monte Vista and the teachers are really into the history of their school, and they celebrate that. Every 5 years they have a big celebration. Here's the aerial looking east at University of New Mexico and pretty much Nob Hill. And here's the Hodgin Hall. It's had its roof removed and made into a Spanish Pueblo style building. And there's the Yale Reservoir, Zimmerman Fields. And then you see Girard, and that's where Monte Vista begins. University Heights, 1906 and 1916, they're both, somewhat developed by 1932. William Leverett Sr., Monte Vista, platted along Central Avenue in the prevalent style of the time, which was lots that were roughly 25 feet across. So between each street, Edmund Ross, the engineer, would measure the distance, and he would break it out into lots that were roughly 25 feet. So they could be 24.82 or 26.07 or whatever. But whatever they came out, they would be roughly 25-foot lots along Central Avenue. So that's why, looking at this 3500 block of Central Avenue just the other day, you have a part of the historic character of our commercial district is that 25-foot rhythm. Sometimes you might have a person that would buy 2 lots and develop them, so you'd maybe have a pair, sometimes even a little bit more. But a lot of these were just a single lot. And Leverett's heirs just sold this one, La Rue Nihati, to the owner of the salon just within the last couple of years. Finally, the old Leverett family sold that. So this is a big part of the architectural character of our commercial district. Is 2 things. One is this rhythm, these 25-foot rhythms, and the other is the scale. The scale was largely 1 story in the late 30s and 40s when most of the area was built.
And don't most of those have a basement?
A lot of those, they fall off into the campus wash area, so a lot of them have basements, yeah. So from behind, they look quite a bit higher. But this is descriptive of a tension that has existed in Nob Hill for at least 20 years, because we did a sector plan in 2007, and we've just now been deeply involved in the Integrated Development Ordinance, the IDO, as many of you have. And there is a natural tension between the community, the neighbors, who really want to keep the historic character, and by that we mean the rhythm and the scale and the materials, and developers who want more height. And we struggled in 2007, and the heights in this part of Nob Hill, which runs from Girard to Aliso, came up to 39 feet. They had been 2 stories prior to that. And in 2007, the community stretched a lot, and they went up to 39 feet. And now in the IDO, we struggled again, and they only came up 3 more feet, 42 feet. I know that a lot of developers wanted them to be much higher. Now, once you get above Aliso, they get up to 57 feet. That's a big change. And then above Washington, quite a bit higher, like even 80 feet. So that's going to define the future of Central Avenue to some extent. Some of the buildings are still just the single owner every 25 or every 50 feet. And that really is why the area is so well preserved. It's always been hard to get to assemble a chunk of land where you could build a big new project. One time that happened in 2007 was when Doscolo's family acquired the Bacchus restaurant site down in Wellesley. And they just had to get one more piece, which was Helen's Bridal, and they got all that, and they built what they call the Place, which which is 3 stories. And that's, you will see more and more of this in Nob Hill going forward.
You could call that the out-of-place place.
That's in the
Good one.
It's in the left hand.
Yeah, it's right there on the very end. It's 3 stories up central. In 1936, we got our fire station. This is a nice shot of its construction. Many of you have worked with Glenn Fye. He gave us enormous help to put these all together over the years. This is the plaque that was outside the fire station until Albuquerque built the new fire station up on Girard, and they moved the plaque. And many of us think that it should be returned to the 1936 fire station. There was a little bit of remodeling already going on by 1938. The Iceberg Cafe was built on the site of the Lobo Theater, before the Lobo Theater. And this Albuquerque progress of 1938 shows how they're moving it so that Lateef Hyder could build his Lobo Theater and his Hyder block. I saw it out on East Central for years, and I saw it in Bernalillo, and now I think it's gone.
Melted.
Global warming, Roland. Here's D.K.B. Sellers in 1938. He did send Christmas cards, but he sent New Year cards. We've seen a Christmas card at the Center for Southwest Research, so we know he did send it. But this card from 1938 is inscribed Happy New Year from the newest and finest located subdivision in Albuquerque. This is thought to be somewhere near where the shopping center, the Nob Hill Shopping Center, was ultimately built. And one day someone will use GIS and computers to find those houses and figure out where it actually was. But he made that sign with those box letters, made that photograph, because he had been thinking all through the years that he wanted to develop a shopping center or shopping district where the Nob Hill Business Center is today.
Is this the first time that area was called Nob Hill?
The first time that we know of, well, I have heard that it was he who coined the term. And I don't know when he coined it in particular. But, see you, Dennis. I was just going to talk about you. Dennis got his first coat and tie at Stromberg's in the Nob Hill Shopping Center.
By the way, they didn't put that back to me either.
Do you still have that coat and tie?
No, I don't think so. I'm sure it was one of
That would have
those
been in
times.
about 1960, I guess. Well, that's where Stromberg's was, here on the corner where Scalo is now. And I've heard there was a shoe shop on that corner. Ben Franklin's over there. The drugstore up on this corner. A bookshop, a stationery shop. And then we understand there's always been a supermarket there. There have been many, many different owners.
Do you know the name of it originally, of the grocery store? Because I know
Well,
my mother worked when it was Rhodes.
Rhodes,
Yeah, it was Rhodes.
spelled
R-H-O-D-E-S.
Rhodes. When was that? What year was that?
Oh, we came in 49, so it was in the very early 50s.
Rhodes.
Yeah, it was a very popular local chain.
I think I have the name
There were several
correct.
stores, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Rose was a department store.
Oh, well, there
No.
was a Rhodes department
Yeah.
store.
This was a supermarket.
But
Yeah.
the supermarket, yeah, that's right.
This is a picture of Ilse Stromberg, who is the daughter of Jack Stromberg and niece of Bernard Stromberg. They were the men who, we understand, put up the money for the construction. She had a name, Lovato, at some point for that grocery store, but it's not clear. But that's an interesting problem to work on. I think we can work on that through the, right over
Yes,
here.
we can go right, here's a group, we'll be right back.
Yeah, I think we can get that right after lunch. There's Ilsa and her husband Ray Garduno. He was our city councilor for quite a few years. This is how it looked when things were still very, very good for Nob Hill. For Route 66, there's the Triangle Bar. Interesting story, I heard about the Triangle. A man named Jim Foley came up around 1960 from Hobbs, and
See,
yeah, we're going to find out.
the old librarian is going to help
Yeah,
us
but
out.
he has privileges.
And Jim Foley came up from Hobbs around 1960. He went to the Triangle Bar, and he said that a white man and a black man and a white woman walked in and ordered, and they were served, and he couldn't believe it because he had never seen that. He said if you did that in Hobbs in 1960, that would have been a real problem. So Nob Hill was progressive even in 1960, I guess. Interstate Highway Act 1956 did not do good things for Nob Hill. Here came Windrock Shopping Center and I-40 around in the 1960s. And I got my first really good suit at Stromberg's in Windrock. Unfortunately, it was not in Nob Hill anymore. So the next 20 years, the interstate traffic was drained off, and I think a lot of local retail customers were going to these new malls too. So Nob Hill really lost it on both sides. And by 1984, Nob Hill was characterized, this is the Jones Motor Company, it was characterized by these kind of businesses like this auto painting and body shop, and this Army-Navy surplus store, and here's the old Stromberg's. It was called the Lamp Shop. And then off to the right is a place called the Second Chance, second-hand store. And that's the kind of things that were going on in Nob Hill by about the mid-'80s. But Nob Hill then got a second chance from a group led by Jack Pickle, who bought the shopping center, and they remodeled it. They raised the prices, the rent prices, and I guess we hear they're really high now. But one of the factors that characterized Nob Hill in the 90s was this hangover effect of the lower rents. You know, when it got to be like this, the rents got low, and that gave a lot of local merchants the opportunity to start a business and to locate it there and not have to pay a fortune for rent. And that characterized a lot of Nob Hill's retail scene through the 90s and even into the 2000s. By 1985, there's the Jones Motor Company, and it now had the sporting goods store. And people like Mary Ann Dickinson came along. She started the Nob Hill Advertiser. They started to promote a nice new restaurant, came into the lamp shop space, and things started to pick up. So here's another piece that she did in 1985. On the left is Frank Lloyd Wright stopping by to see Joe Eckert Huber in her Eckert's Furniture Shop at Tulane and Central. And now the Eckert's Furniture Shop is Matanza, the beer kitchen and restaurant. That's sort of emblematic of where Nob Hill has come. Someone has characterized it, someone from outside Nob Hill characterized it as a premier or food and drink place or location. And we like food and we like drink, most of us, but Nob Hilleños decry the loss of retail in Nob Hill. We want to walk down there and we'd like to buy a loaf of bread or a pair of underwear, and you can't hardly do that in Nob Hill at this time. This is a recent shot of the shopping center. pretty much the way it's looked since '85 when Pickle and Van Gilbert AIA did the remodel.
Do you know what major or significant changes they made in the remodel versus the original architecture?
Well, Bill, I peeked at the nomination recently. What I remember was that a lot of it was restoration, like the repair of a lot of the terracotta. They had to have those made, no doubt. And so they did some of that. They added those blue awnings all the way around the inside and a lot of the outside. So I guess to get better sun control and rain.
But it was mostly
control.
Remodeling of the original features, trying to restore it.
Except for the awnings, it was mostly restoration. I understand also that they put through that outdoor access from the middle of the shopping center to Silver. I understand that wasn't there to begin with. It was just the two that go out to Carlisle and Amherst, I think. And they added that one for some reason. Well, they have their parking in the back.
Sure, yeah.
They wanted people to be able to get in there. So this is Nob Hill 1916. We celebrated our 100th birthday in 1916. We started the planning in 2015 and went to the school and told the children Nob Hill's 100. They said, no, it's not, it's 99. Well, now it's 102, so Nob Hill is 102. This sign is now out of date. But throughout 2016, we celebrated. We have some very attractive people in Nob Hill, and we had an insiders tour where people could buy tickets and go in some of the homes and some of the commercial spaces and sacred spaces and have a nice tour. There's a detail of that poster here, and the reason that I put it in is to show you the cooperation that came out of our community, from our commercial businesses, our city councilor, our county commissioner helped us with funding, and the trolley company, the University of New Mexico School of Architecture and Planning. We were able to donate, I think, a couple $1,000 to their program in historic preservation, which their director has used, I hear, for kind of, where students want to go on something, but they just don't have the money, so he has kind of helped some of them get in some program projects. Yes, ma'am?
Just a quick question. Mark Pardo's Hill, I worked in that building when it was a 5 and dime, but I don't remember what it was called. It would have
Well,
been
I've seen pictures.
What was
Franklin.
Ben Franklin's?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen photos that call it Ben
one summer I
Franklin's.
worked.
Ben
Okay,
Franklin's.
thank you.
We had a pet parade. This lady brought a pet pig.
Oh.
We had an after party.
Bourbon.
Very thirsty dogs in Nob Hill. We did an oral history project, and I think some of you are doing oral history. Those are really fun. And you think it's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to really put you out, but it only serves you. It only blesses you if you're doing this kind of work and hearing these kind of stories. That was funded by a grant from Bernalillo County. I believe that grant was that funded upwards of $14,000 of the work that we did on our 100th birthday, and about $8,000 of it for the oral history project. Most of that for the videography and the editing. There's D.K.B. Seller's granddaughter, Sally. We interviewed her.
Where is she now?
Where is she? The last I heard, she is living in La Sala del Norte up at Comanche in Wyoming, where she lived with her family for the last 30 years.
Great.
I think she's okay up there. Here's George Schaefer, insurance man. He was the son of Shafe Schaefer, who edited the Tribune. And Shafe was a friend of Ernie Pyle, and Ernie was friends with Shafe and Nancy, and not Nancy, with Shafe and their kids. So George was a little boy, and you know, he got to hang out with Ernie and go to the Alvarado for dinner and that kind of thing. We interviewed him.
George just passed away.
Yes, he did.
Recently.
Yes, he did.
He was, when we had during Tricentennial, we had an event and an exhibit here in the Chautauqua where somebody portrayed Ernie Pyle. George was in the audience and shared memories.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
April of 2005.
Yeah. Well, you know, since we did the oral history, I can think of about 5 of our subjects who have passed on. So I wish we had started a long time ago, but I'm glad we did. We also interviewed these little Nob Hilleños. Here's Ernst Haas's image of Route 66 in 1969. The Travel Lodge, the Conoco. Lots of off-premise signs which are no longer allowed, thanks to our IDO. This one doesn't show so many. Here's what it looks like today. The Carlisle is a condo on the right, and that was just completed twice. They say it's selling well for around $350, up for $350 for a smaller place. And that was a pottery yard for a lot of years, wasn't it? And then it was an awful car wash and a tattoo. And so, you know, this is one of the things that is positive about density is that you have more people to ride the transit and to buy the food, the restaurant meals, the underwear. So we can have vibrant commercial district. There's our art station up at East Nob Hill, it's called. Our association and Main Street struggled with the art planners because we thought that was inconsistent with our historic character.
You think?
And the SHPO actually weighed in and came down for a meeting with all of us. And ultimately, all the SHPO could offer was that one of the major contributing factors to the historic character of our commercial district was scale. So they brought the size down a little bit. But we could not get them to do anything with the style.
Well, in some of the other historic neighborhoods, the SHPO had the city remove the canopies.
Yeah, this one right up here,
so you could have
there's no, and we talked about that, but people generally said, well, we want to have shelter.
Of course.
This is the 1939 Conoco station, Cecil Starkey, the Golden Eagle, I think it's called, the furniture store. It's empty, it's available, it could be torn down and redeveloped. There it is on the left. There's the 1939 De Anza. Here it is now. Actually, this building is gone.
Right.
The city struck a deal with the developer. That developer changed a lot into other parties, but kept the rights. And so the new group features people like TLC Plumbing and the architects design group and Jim Trump from the Carpenters Union. Jim said that building was so full of cat stink that no remediation company would ever guarantee you could get it out. And there's the Turquoise Cafe on the corner of Graceland. And this is the concept. This is the drawing of what they plan. They're keeping really three elements. The Turquoise Cafe, which we think will probably be office space, and about 5 guest rooms over on the corner of Washington and Central, which we think will be maybe administrative facilities, maybe guest rooms too. And then the Tony Adaki murals that were under one of the buildings. They were talking about removing the murals, maybe taking them to a museum in Santa Fe or something. And the community expressed its desire that they be left in place and that they be available for interpretive viewing. And so that's the plan now. All around the edges, those will be new buildings, 1 or 2 stories, and in the middle there'll be a new building that overlies the murals. That would be kind of like a clubhouse. It'll have an elevator with controlled access so that people who are authorized can give interpretive viewings of the murals.
With the permission of the Zuni tribe cultural division.
The Zuni tribe is involved in that, and I understand they're talking about maybe providing a certain amount of shop space for Zuni art, but I don't know where that is. The center building is gone, and that's been turned into a pad, which Jim Trump tells me will be leased or sold to a restaurant. Or maybe leased or sold, but we don't know for sure. But it'll be a new building, and it will be moved forward right up to Central Avenue. Yes, ma'am?
When is that? I grew up 2 blocks behind the Deonza, so I grew up in the Broadmoor division. I still own my parents' house.
Yes.
And it's right there where one of those taller buildings is going to be. So what is their projected time frame?
They're hard at it.
It was down because it's off of Washington where the art thing is, but just 2 blocks down.
Well,
And they're working on it right now.
They're hard at work on the project.
I know on the Deonza project, but I'm saying the house that I own is back where some of those taller buildings.
No, it only goes to Silver.
The Deonza project, just from Washington to Graceland,
Right.
the buildings on Washington are going to be 1 story. Then in the middle and on Graceland, there'll be 2 stories. So not
and on the
too
extent
small.
Because I grew up and had the house.
Not Silver.
Copper.
It's copper because
Yeah.
our house, my house that I don't live in now, but I own, is behind Graceland on Sierra Place.
Yes.
Off Ridgely.
Yes. Well, fortunately, this won't be like that telephone building.
Yeah.
That telephone building is emblematic of the things that our community dislikes, especially when they're looking right down on the houses. And there's an element in the IDO called neighborhood edges where buildings are supposed to kind of go up as they go back into their site, a wedding cake approach, which will help with that. There's the Aztec, the 1933 Aztec, listed in the State and National Register, demolished by its owner about 3 years ago. And this is what's there now, which is a 4-story building. It's an apartment house, and it's right back on Copper. The front of the site is not permitted or not maybe envisioned for development yet. That building, however, it's 4 stories. It was permitted under our sector plan. The sector plan allows 3-story buildings, and this one slipped through the permitting process. It was challenged by our association, but lost that. And the planning director at the time wrote a letter and said that that would be a minor change that would be allowed.
An additional story.
What?
An additional story?
Yes, an additional.
A minor change.
I should point out that the sector plan said 39 feet / 3-story. And it's slightly over 39 feet, but that was all argued in a legalistic way. But the 4th story was approved administratively when it was half built and when the community appealed the building permit. So it's permitted now. Here's the Nob Hill Court, 1937. It was called the Modern Nob Hill Court. This is a little further east, and the owner restored that, renovated that, and he leases those motel rooms as office space and a barber shop, an insurance agent. That kind of work tends to guarantee the longevity of a building. You know, when you make a big investment, it's a little bit harder to tear it down. This is the 3500 block, right south of Scalo. This is the way it looked originally with American Appliances, and off to the left a little bit was Berg Auto Electric. This is the way that it looks today. It still has the style, it still, it still has the scale, it still has the rhythm, but it's been extensively modified. This is what it originally looked like. But it's got the Frenchish restaurant, it's got a salon, it's got a brewery and a restaurant.
Remember Happy Feet used to be?
Which one?
Happy Feet.
Elsa Ross was in there. This 3400 block housed Kurt's Camera Corral from the beginning until about 3 years ago. And Kurt's characterizes the aging of the retail element in any area. Because in the last 5 years, Kurt's son sold that building, and Hey Johnny, he retired and moved, and Elsa Ross, her daughter, retired. Beeps retired. Pueblo Loft retired. So, and I think a lot of people maybe were stimulated by the art. They just said, look, I've been thinking about retiring. It's going to be a miserable year, so I'm just going to do it. So a lot of things are going that way in Nob Hill. And here's Kurt's Camera Corral. It was remodeled. The scale changed a little bit. It went about, the parapet went up about 3 feet. The brick masonry, the fenestration was all changed and covered, and this is what Kurt's looks like now. It has a Frost ice cream shop on the right and a ceviche restaurant next door.
What happened to the Jennifer James restaurant that was going to go in there?
That's in there.
It's in there?
Yeah. It's the blue one right there, Frenchish.
Ah.
That's Jennifer's restaurant. So that's up just south of the shopping center.
But Kurt's had that Roman brick, that long red brick.
Kurt's had that stacked brick of an unusual dimension and then stacked rather than bonded.
We have one of those on 4th Street. It's called the Brown Construction Company, which is a city project that our neighborhood's talking about. Well, that's a design motif that's not seen. It's remarkable.
There's still another building on the south side of the street, a little bit further west, I think, that has this style brick that's is in more complete shape. Yeah, it's a very unique style.
It sure is.
But they've kept that more intact. And of course, the building right next to this, that Scotty's dog grooming and everything right there, that building is in original condition.
And that's a 25-foot building that is even split in half.
Yeah.
They've got the music shop and they've got Scotty's Grooming, like 12.5 foot wide. Master cleaners worked on the same spot for 71 years. But they've retired. And, well, I don't know if they've retired. They have other shops around town. But they closed this one and it's being remodeled.
What's it gonna be?
Haven't heard, haven't figured it out. Silver and Wellesley. Silver has become like the Nob Hill of the 90s, where a person can start a new business and get in there and not have to pay a fortune for rent. So Silver is changing, and not for the worse. You also see that on Copper and campus. We have this, what was called OR1, OR2 zoning, where you can have office and residential. And now under the IDO, that's called mixed-use transitional. So it's transitional between commercial and residential. And those kinds of spaces are the ones that will still be vital and still can be rented by folks who are starting out. This is Jones Motor Company opening celebration in 1939. I like the sombrero.
I like the white t-shirts on all the
Yeah, the white t-shirt's nice, huh?
Cigarettes.
Jones Motor Company today is landmarked by the city. It's protected. And they do a thriving business in food and drink. There's our fire station. There's our fire station today. The owner they had that lift and they were doing a lot of pretty expensive maintenance on the front of the building and on those vigas, protecting vigas.
You should have seen what they wanted to do.
Oh.
They wanted to plumb the bigger old addition right in front of the building.
And they were not able to?
Well, we talked about it.
Thank you. Bless you. Bless you.
They said they didn't have enough parking because they were adding some addition.
This is the Lobo Theater, the Hyder Block. Just recently, the Lobo is leased by a church.
Is this the first real commercial block in Nob Hill, outside of the automobile style buildings or functional buildings? Was this the first real like stores in Nob Hill?
Yeah, 1938.
I would think so.
The Route 66 had just come, and developers were getting very serious about developing in that area. And the other thing, Bill, is that it has that single architectural theme on the right side of the building.
Yes.
Even though the Crazy Fish changed it. So Hyder was really almost doing one of the first shopping centers rather than every 25 feet making it different.
That's what I noticed, a couple of years ago when I did the Route 66 resurvey, and we had a chance to get a little bit closer look at these blocks in Nob Hill that I hadn't really had a chance to look at closely, and this was really stuck out. And today, all of those features, all that tile work at the base and stuff is all original. And the only change besides Crazy Fish, Buffalo Exchange and stuff to the left was a little bit later.
Yeah.
But the parapet height at the corner was raised at some point in time. At the original pictures, just show more of a level. It didn't rise up at the corner like it does today. And that was always curious to me. But everything else are the original features, which is just remarkable in terms of preservation.
It is.
And I was really hoping we could, someday maybe try to get that, certified in writing that this is historically important. But
yeah.
But anyway, I was curious because most of the stuff that comes on later is further down the block, and it is post-war because I think soon after this you started having the war restrictions on construction
Wood.
materials.
Good point.
Yeah, and so this is a very important block, I thought, for Nob Hill.
It sure is.
Can I ask a question? Where Buffalo Exchange is now, wasn't it Tiger's?
Yes, it was a department store like.
Okay, but
Yeah.
they had a soda fountain or a counter, you could go in there and eat, I remember.
Yeah, it could have had that too, but it was a few years earlier. It was post-war.
What was it called?
I had it, but I don't remember it offhand. But
Yeah.
There was a bowling alley. Do you know?
Yeah.
yes, there was.
Was it in the zinc space? Was that the bowling alley?
It might have been. Yeah, it was on that to the left of the theater.
We interviewed Robert Gleason, who grew up in South Stanford. He said that they would walk up to the fire station for their Boy Scout meetings. Troop 3 was sponsored by the firemen. At the end of the meeting, they could slide down the pole. And they would work at the bowling alley next to the Lobos, so it must have been zinc.
Yeah.
And they were setting pins by hand. So the owner would have them go watch movies, and then he would come and fetch them. And I think he paid him $3 a line, 3 cents a line to set pins for his bowling alley. There's our Monte Vista School in 1947, and there it is today. APS has made a big commitment to our school. There's been a lot of concern that it would be sold and redeveloped as condos or something, or torn down and build a nice new modern building. But APS recently replaced the old boilers in the basement with modern boilers that will have a lot better energy efficiency and will feed the right amount of water at the right temperature to the radiators in the classrooms.
I was just going to comment on schools in the area. I attended University Heights grade school.
Okay.
Just, right off of Yale on the west
Is
side.
that where CNM is?
Yeah, it's right in the middle of
And
CNN.
my old school building was gobbled up.
It's
I mean,
all
it's
scabbed all over.
Yeah, but you have to really look to see.
Yeah, just like they wanted to do with the fire station, huh? There's Leverett's house in 1928, and here it is today. It has a pair of very good stewards. There's Beulah Fleming's house when it was new. There it is today. In our historic district, 702 of the 859 buildings are contributing. They were when it was inventoried. I'm sure it's less now. But a lot of them are, and a lot of people in Monte Vista and College View use the tax credits for historic preservation. And so I'll wind this up. Nob Hill, it's a place where people like to get together in the backyard and exchange ideas, go on architecture walks. We prize diversity. People of all ages, like in ice cream socials. We like street fairs. We like to sign petitions. We like to take care of our children, bearded lizards and other pets.